It is 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story.
The eyes to the right, 314. The nose to the left, 291. The eyes have it, and look!
The tears of relief, the faces of disappointment, contrasting emotions after Parliament's momentous vote to make assisted dying legal.
I'm happy it's gone through because it has to start, and it has to start now.
The implementation of the law, though, is still years away, and its supporters and those who hope to use it face more political hurdles to come. Also tonight, from protests to prescription by the government, why the group which broke into an RAF base faces being effectively branded as terrorist. The latest attacks a week into the conflict between Israel and Iran, as Iran's foreign minister meets his counterparts, including Britain's. Celebrating summer as the heat continues to build, with tomorrow's solstice set to be the hottest day of the year so far. And we will take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Good evening. When the vote was passed, she raised her hands to her face as if she could hardly look. And the emotions of Kem Leadbitter, the MP who had just taken a giant step towards changing the law on assisted dying, were not unique. Inside Parliament and among campaigners and the terminally ill outside, there was for some relief, for others anger. The terminally ill adults' end-of-life bill was approved by 314 votes to 291, a majority of 23. The new law in England and Wales will allow adults over 18 who are terminally ill within the last 6 months of their life and have mental capacity to ask a doctor for assistance to end their life. 2 doctors will need to assess that the person meets certain criteria, including that they have a clear, settled and informed wish to end their own life and that they've made their decision without coercion or pressure. A High Court judge would then also have to approve the application, and a life-ending substance would be prescribed, which the person would have to administer themselves. Now, providing assistance to the dying person would not be a crime, but it will become illegal to induce someone to request assistance to end their life or induce someone to self-administer that life-ending substance. Well, tonight we'll hear from those on both sides of this debate and assess the hurdles which remain in the way of the law actually coming into effect. But first, our health correspondent Ashish Joshi reports from Westminster.
So much at stake for both sides. The minutes felt like hours.
The eyes to the right, 314. The nose to the left, 291.
And this is what the result means to Dr. Jackie Davis after a decade of campaigning.
It means that patients going forward, doctors can help them with a bad death at the end of life. And I just think about all the patients who've had to suffer to bring us to this point here, including my brother who took his own life with terminal cancer. Just let's get on with this now.
But for those who stood against assisted dying, a vow to continue the fight.
I'm so disappointed that these MPs have not voted to protect the most vulnerable people in our society, people who feel the pressure to give their lives up for their relatives, for the state, for the cost of it, whatever it is. I'm so disappointed they voted against protecting life.
Kill that bill! Kill that bill!
All day they made their feelings known.
Freedom! Vote yes! Freedom! Vote yes!
Hoping to sway the last of the undecided, listening to every word.
It is not often we are asked to wrestle with issues of morality, ethics and humanity. But with great privilege of this job comes great responsibility, and never more so than at a time like this.
This bill is not fit for purpose.
I want to, by this legislation, provide that dignity for those who've decided the time has come.
There is so much that is problematic about this bill.
Frank doubts she'll live long enough to ask for an assisted death. She has liver disease, cancer, diabetes and fibromyalgia. Her joy is for other terminally ill patients who will not have to suffer.
If it actually came in before I died, it makes me feel like I have my own choice. It makes me feel that I can go with dignity.
But for disability campaigner Mike Smith, this result brings worry and uncertainty.
No one wants to see people suffer. I've seen my own father, my own aunt die of cancer. It's not nice. But it just bewilders me that MPs can make a decision and not understand or think about the context and the society into which this legislation will be implemented.
We are not dead yet.
The debate has exposed deep divisions. Where there is hope, there is also fear. The passing of this bill will bring about seismic societal change as important as the decriminalisation of homosexuality or the legalisation of abortion. But today's vote is not the end of the story. In many ways, it's on to the next chapter.
Our freedom, our choice. Listen to our voice.
History has been made. For those who have fought so long and so hard, they must endure a little more. But they know that irrevocable change is at last underway. Ashish Joshi, Sky News at Westminster.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer was among the MPs who backed the change in the law. He may not have spoken in the House, but many across political parties did, sometimes sharing their personal stories of why they either backed or opposed the change. Our political correspondent Liz Bates reports.
A place steeped in history has changed the course of it once again. As Parliament passed life-changing legislation, the corridors of power echoed with personal stories. MPs, unusually, listening in respectful silence.
His body became skeletal and his speech gradually disappeared. And one of the last times when he still was able to speak, he called out to me from his bed and told me if there was a pill that he could take to end his life, he would very much like to take that.
No one is more voiceless in this debate than those terminally ill adults who had suffered painful, traumatic and undignified deaths.
This is assisted killing or assisted suicide, depending on which word you choose.
The ayes to the right, 314.
At the winning moment, the assisted dying bill's sponsor, Kim Leadbeater, on whose shoulders this responsibility fell, seemed visibly relieved.
It feels very surreal, to be quite honest. It feels a huge relief because a huge amount of work has gone into getting us to this day. I think we had a very respectful debate. The chamber was, again, at its best, which I think was really important. But the important thing is we've got the bill over the line, which means so much to so many people.
In the end, the vote was very close, just a 23 majority. But although the margin was small, this moment could not feel any bigger. And the woman behind it, backbench Labour MP Kim Leadbeater, she's behind me now congratulating campaigners, many of whom have been wanting this, working on it for decades. And their day has come. But opponents were commiserating after their own long battle to block the bill ended in disappointment and frustration.
It's been a very draining exercise, having to go through in detail all of the issues around the bill, and for those of we all feel very strongly about it. To lose is a big disappointment, but we've now got to make sure we hold everybody's feet to the fire to deliver on the promises that were being made around palliative care.
Others will find the next stage even harder, with both the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, and the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, now tasked with delivering a change they are strongly against. And that's not the only obstacle this legislation will face.
Well, obviously it goes now to the House of Lords, and the great thing about the House of Lords is, they have a lot of wisdom around the minutiae of legislation, but they're also wise about the democratic dynamic. There might be some technical amendments, let's wait and see, and then it can come back, but fundamentally respecting the fact that the moral choices of the nation are for the Democratic House to make.
After it passes through the Lords, it will still take a maximum of 4 years to implement. So, for those who have waited, the end still seems far away. Liz Bates, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, let's bring in our political correspondent Tamara Cohen for more on this. And Tamara, as we saw there, the law to allow assisted dying isn't over the line just yet.
That's right, Kamali. Hours of impassioned debate, all those hopes and fears set out by MPs, but this is not the law yet. It is a big moment, but this legislation has to go through various stages in the House of Lords. Now, it's very unlikely that they will block it all together, but the expectation is they will go through it line by line. They may make changes. They may add in further safeguards. If all that goes through, there are then up to 4 years to actually implement it. How will it work? Will people have an assisted death in an NHS hospital? Will there be special clinics like abortion clinics, for example? All these decisions will have to be made. How will people go about contacting their doctor about it? What will happen with these panels that are supposed to decide if someone is allowed to go ahead? The Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood and the Health Secretary Wes Streeting will both play key roles, and they both voted against assisted dying. Now, all this is happening in England and Wales. The Scottish Government is considering its own assisted dying bill, and there are no plans for one currently in Northern Ireland. But a lot of questions about how exactly this is going to work, which will have to be gone through over the next few years, including new offences to be introduced for people found to have coerced someone into doing this. So campaigners for assisted dying delighted, those who campaigned against it very much despairing, but there are quite a few more stages to go before this goes ahead.
Tamara Cohen in Westminster, thank you. Well, at the centre of this debate are real people who's suffering with terminal illness and their families, and has meant they've got strong feelings on both sides. Well, over the past year, Sky News has been following the journeys of 2 people given 6 months to live and on opposing sides of this debate. Claire, who has supported the bill from the start, gave us her reaction today. Philip, a staunch opponent, spoke to us at the weekend before he sadly died on Wednesday. Sajid Chowdhury reports.
For months, Claire and Philip were told terminal illnesses mean they would die soon. Both are on opposite sides of the assisted dying debate. As the bill moved through Parliament, they agreed to let Sky News follow their journeys.
I've got stage 4 cancer, which started as breast cancer. It's already spread to my liver and pretty much throughout, I guess, most of my bones.
I've got pancreatic cancer, which is not only affecting my pancreas, but also affecting my lungs.
Claire strongly supports assisted dying.
The ayes to the right, 330. The noes to the left, 275.
When a majority of MPs agreed with her last November, she thought it would pave the way for a death of her choice.
For me, it's really important to be able to have a good death in the garden under my oak tree with my daughters.
Today, she gave us her reaction to the vote.
The ayes have it. Did they say it's passed? Yes. Oh, thank goodness. Thank you to all those people that were brave.
This may not come in time for you.
No, it won't. Well, it hasn't come in time for a lot of people, has it? You know, all the people that have gone before that would have liked this choice to avoid suffering, indignity.
Philip has long been against assisted dying, or suicide, as he'd called it.
You don't know what's around the corner, do you? And God can intervene too and change everything.
Philip didn't get to see today's vote. 2 days ago, he died. But we did speak to him at the weekend. Visibly weaker, but still as strong as ever in his opposition to the bill. He asked us to show you this interview today.
Head up more, darling. Kill the bill, don't kill the ill. But I would say somehow they need to bring in palliative care because it makes all the difference. And they don't realise, sorry to say, but I still believe it's because of money. It would save millions and millions and millions and millions if they bump off people like me and Claire and others.
Philip died with his family around him.
I do think it's good for people to see people dying, because whether we like it or not, sooner or later we're all going to stuff it.
Well, we've had as many as 12 people sleeping at one time in the house. But it's been a lovely time as well, and I do hope that the grandchildren will remember the good times in this as well as the sadness.
Assisted dying won't be for everyone in the way death is. But it has, and may well continue to be, a political issue with people right at its heart. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News.
Now, Donald Trump said tonight that Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe and the country is doing less well than Israel in their conflict so far. The Iranian foreign minister was in Europe today, meeting fellow ministers, including Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Well, it's now been just over a week since the conflict between Israel and Iran escalated, with both sides exchanging missiles. The IDF has mainly focused on striking multiple military, nuclear and civilian sites across Iran. Tehran has been targeted in particular, with thousands being forced to flee over the past few days. Iran's targets have included Israel's educational and energy facilities, as well as government buildings. There were fresh strikes today in both countries. The Israeli city of Haifa was hit, where at least 19 people were hurt. These strikes came as those diplomatic efforts got underway in Geneva. Our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, was there for the talks and sent us this report.
After hours of talks, the Ayatollah's chief diplomat emerged giving little away. The world was watching. Would Iran's foreign minister give any ground in the face of Israel's fierce bombardment of his country?
Iran is ready to consider diplomacy once again, and once aggression is stopped and the aggressor is held accountable for the crimes committed. In this regard, I made it crystal clear that Iran's defense capabilities are not negotiable.
Iran will negotiate, says Abbas Araghchi, but only if Israel stops its offensive. And that is unlikely, particularly after this. This isn't Israel bombarding Tehran, but a massive Iranian strike on the Israeli port of Haifa, just as the talks in Geneva got underway. Then another, caught on CCTV in the southern city of Beersheba. There was less footage of Israeli attacks on Iran due to a near-total internet outage in the country. Israel's foreign minister told Sky News he was unimpressed with diplomatic progress so far.
It is clear that Iran is misleading. Iran is trying to waste time. Iran hadn't brought any new suggestion with regard to the demand that they will stop the enrichment in their territory.
The sultry serenity of Geneva may seem a million miles away from this conflict, but it's been the venue of diplomatic breakthroughs in the past. Could it work its magic again? French, German, British diplomats were here to tell Iran it needs to make concessions before American President Donald Trump loses patience.
I think what coming together with European colleagues today we were urging is Iran to take that off-ramp, to be serious about the diplomacy that is required at this moment, to meet the moment and to deal with the concerns that the international community have.
President Trump says US military action could come within 2 weeks, should diplomacy fail. On the strength of today's events here, it is not succeeding.
Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this.
Well, after almost 4 hours of talks, there's not much progress that can be reported from here. No real sign of a breakthrough. The best we can say is the talks went on longer than expected, and they have agreed to carry on talking. But time is ticking, and that 2-week deadline set by Donald Trump is approaching ever faster.
Embattled and bombarded, Iran is increasingly isolated, but it is not yet buckling to the pressure. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Geneva.
I'm pleased to say Dom joins us now live. Good evening to you, Dominic. After a week of this conflict, where does this leave the chances of diplomacy actually succeeding?
I don't think much further down the line, Kamali. I mean, there were a couple of flaws with this plan all along, in that the countries meeting Iran are not the countries that are bombarding Iran or threatening to. So Israel and America weren't involved, but they did send through, or the Americans sent through their European allies, a message, a kind of ultimatum to the Iranians saying, we want to talk to you directly again, saying to the Iranians, the Americans, and we will resume those negotiations. But if the diplomacy fails and you don't agree to do so, then our threat to inflict more military damage on you using our own forces as well as the Israelis is a very real one. And I think the other problem is that, you know, the Iranians know the Europeans don't believe in that ultimatum. They don't want this crisis to be resolved with any more military force. They want diplomacy to win the day and resolve things that way. So I think, you know, if the Iranians are worried about the threat of Trump getting the Americans involved as well, certainly their sort of cool, calm, collected Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi there that we saw didn't seem to be showing it. And I think the Iranians may be looking at this threat from Trump and wondering whether he's all talk and not really taking the Europeans that seriously either. So, you know, things did not go backwards today. People looking at these talks, you know, all around the world, hoping that this crisis that is worrying everybody, this war, could be resolved in some sense diplomatically. You know, the good news is the talks went on for longer. There was something to talk about. They have agreed to talk again, but the Iranians at the moment digging in their heels. They say they'll talk to the Americans if the Israelis stop bombarding them. They know that that is not very likely. So I think, you know, both sides sort of staring at each other still. The war goes on. There's some diplomatic progress, but not a lot to report from here tonight.
Waghorn in Geneva, thank you for that. Well, the British super yacht that sank off Sicily last August, killing 7 people, has been brought back to the surface. The Basium was slowly raised from the seabed over the last 3 days. Well, the vessel went down with a number of people on board, including the businessman Mike Lynch, his daughter, and 5 others. Vladimir Putin says Russia is ready to recognise Ukrainian sovereignty, but the country needs to accept the realities of Moscow's territorial gains as part of any peace deal. The president also said he is not seeking Ukraine's capitulation and that Ukrainians and Russians are one people, claiming, in that sense, that all of Ukraine is Russia. The singer Chris Brown has pleaded not guilty to attempting to cause grievous bodily harm in an alleged attack at a nightclub in London. The 36-year-old is accused of attacking a music producer called Abraham Dior at Tape in Mayfair in February of 2023. The pro-Palestinian protest group, which broke into the country's biggest RAF base earlier today, could be effectively designated as terrorist. The Home Secretary is planning to make being a member of Palestine Action illegal. Well, the group sprayed red paint onto 2 military aircraft at Brize Norton. A security review has been launched. Our correspondent Adele Robinson reports from Oxfordshire.
National security compromised using an e-scooter, a serious breach at Britain's largest Air Force base. Protesters used repurposed fire extinguishers to spray red paint on 2 military planes on the runway at RAF Brize Norton. Palestine Action said this protest was to directly intervene in what they say is a genocide in Gaza and prevent crimes against the Palestinian people.
I think it's extremely concerning that these people have managed to breach the security of what is one of our most important RAF bases and inflict damage on 2 critical aircraft for armed forces. I think that's extremely concerning. What we need to see now is a very urgent investigation into how this was able to happen, but also, as has been promised, a review of security across the UK at all our bases, and that needs to happen quickly.
It's understood the Home Secretary will move to prescribe the Palestine Action Group, basically branding them a terrorist organisation, while counter-terrorism police are now investigating. And the government have confirmed a security review of Britain's defence estate. This was not just an embarrassing breach domestically and internationally. It was also a potentially extremely dangerous one, because not only did protesters gain access here, but they even got away, evading security and arrest. And at a time of heightened threat, as the Gaza war and the broader Israel-Iran conflict continue, the breach is particularly concerning.
I think where the real harm lies and what could cause even more
than reputational harm and harm to individual aircraft is if hostile states decided to get involved in similar actions by essentially contracting gig workers to carry out harmful attacks on their behalf. Reputational harm would result from that, also harm to the installations, possibly to aircraft and other equipment, and yet it would be very difficult to hold that hostile state to account for such an act.
The Prime Minister said this: the act of vandalism committed at RAF Bryce Norton is disgraceful. Our armed forces represent the very best of Britain and put their lives on the line for us every day. It's our responsibility to support those who defend us. A senior RAF source said the aircraft had not been used to support Israeli forces in any way. But while the incident has not stopped operations, it has shaken confidence in a site that's critical to the nation's defence. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
Now, you are likely to have noticed, but today was another very warm day across the country, and tomorrow will be even hotter. In Knaresborough, in North Yorkshire, it reached 29 degrees, with not just the dogs there trying to find a way to cool off, with an amber heat health alert currently in force across England. 28 degrees in Edinburgh, with some headed to the beach with a barbecue there on wheels, nice. And on the Isle of Wight, though, where thousands are gathering for the Isle of Wight Festival, it was more manageable, 23 degrees, though it will get hotter for those there tomorrow. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in our press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the PR consultant Alex Dean and the Guardian columnist Zoe Williams. Guys, thanks for being with us. Among the topics to be discussed, this on the front page of the Daily Mirror about tonight's main story here on Sky News. Their headline, MPs back assisted dying. We'll be right back.